Stand back. I am doing baking experiment. Emily Bain.
Stand back. I'm doing baking experiments. As you may have guessed, I love to bake. It's one of my top passions. As Harriet Hahn said, cooking is like love. It should be entered into with abandon or not at all. And I think the same could be said about baking. My first forays into baking started when I was but a wee lass, small at the knees or hip of my grandmother, who was also very passionate about baking. My first personal individual endeavor, perhaps, was the great banana bread experiment. We had some rotten bananas or going bad bananas, so I tossed them into a bowl. I was like, well, let's try some sugar, some eggs. Well, what do I do with this? Out comes the magic recipe box. Banana bread. And it all started with that first look of banana bread. I haven't looked back since. And in my baking endeavors, I've learned 3 key points that I'm going to share with you today. First, the importance of being prepared and following instructions. Second, thinking outside of the box, the cake mix box. And third, that baking really is a family affair. So, what do I mean when I say the importance of being prepared and following instructions? Well, when you're starting off your baking endeavors, you start with a recipe. It's always important, before you get started, before you even heat the oven, to read off the ingredients that you need and to make sure that you have all said ingredients. I confess there's been 1, maybe 2, maybe a few times that I've gotten pumped, ready, excited. I'm going to make the latest cupcakes or maybe a batch of delicious cookies. And I'm putting in the ingredients, the flour, the eggs, the butter, the sugar. I swore I had sugar. It's important to make sure that you have all the ingredients before you get started so that you don't have to stop, toss off your apron, and run to the store to get them. It's also important to make sure that you follow the instructions carefully so that you add the ingredients at the right time and that you add the right ingredients in the right amounts. I had once this really great batch of cookies. I was so excited. They came out of the oven looking perfect. I knew they were going to just taste great, and I was going to bring them for a work event. I signed up to bring cookies, and I was thrilled that everything had gone according to plan. As a rule of thumb, I generally try to taste my baking endeavors before they go out the door. So I took a bite. Oh, that was the salt, not the sugar. Yeah. And, well, I've tried to improvise with the ingredients before, but that just doesn't always turn out either. So it's always best to read the instructions, make sure that you have all the ingredients. Oh, and also, if you're in a hurry and it says to bake for 30 to 40 minutes at 350 degrees, turning it up to 375 and baking it for 20 to 30 just isn't the same thing. Not that I know that from experience. On to point number 2 anyway. Thinking outside of the box. An unknown author once said that bagels are like donuts with the sin removed. I love baking, but unfortunately this kind of comes in conflict a little bit with my best attempts at a healthy lifestyle. Let's face it, cookies, cupcakes, donuts, cakes, pies generally aren't known for their low fat and calorie content. So I take this opportunity to think outside of the box. Now again, keeping in mind that we have to follow instructions, of course, I use my creative mind to come up with new ways to make lower fat options. Did you know that you can make a low fat cupcake from cake mix just by taking a cake mix and a can of soda? You don't actually need the eggs and the oil that they tell you to put in. They only put that because people refuse to buy the box cake mix because with just the soda and cake mix instructions because it was just too simple. But really it works. Can of soda, cake mix, and you can get creative. You could use orange soda and get orange cupcakes, root beer and root beer cupcakes. It's awesome. And it's generally lower in fat. Baking, you can do all sorts of things. It's fantastic. You can add your own ingredients, but always again, make sure that you're following instructions and substitute compatible things. Family endeavor. I'd like to share a quick story. There once was a young girl, Sarah, who saw her mother preparing a roast. Her mother was preparing it by tying it up, but she cut off the ends before she put it into the cooking pot. Sarah asked her mother, well, why do you do that? It's like, well, that's the way my mother always did it. So they asked Sarah's grandmother why she did it. She said, well, that's the way my grandmother always did it. So they get in the car and they go out to the retirement home to find the great-grandmother, who's very old at this point. They ask her, and she says, well, because when I did it, the roast didn't fit in the dish. That's why I had to cut it off. A wise person once said, if God intended us to use recipes, he wouldn't have given us grandmothers. My baking endeavors all can stem back to my grandmother. During Christmas, every year, cookies. Lots and lots of Christmas cookies. All sorts of varieties. It was great. It was a tradition. We would literally fight over some of these Christmas cookies. Who got what? But going back through some of her recipes, a pinch of this, a dash of that, generous helping of that. It's not the most conducive when you're trying to pick up the recipe afterwards. Last year, I was also very excited to learn and see that my husband, of all people, was getting really excited about baking. He too wanted to make lower fat versions of delectable treats. One of the things that he always promised me when we first started dating was that he was going to make a low fat cheesecake. I love cheesecake. We've been married for 6 years, we've been together for 10, I'm still waiting for my low fat cheesecake. But, like me, he does his baking with his own flair. No soft, cute, flirty, floral apron. When he bakes, he does it with this and this. Stand back, he's doing science in the kitchen. That's why we don't have a little flamethrower, we have a flamethrower. But heck, those cream brulees taste good, so I can't complain. Cooking is really about love and passion. Make sure that you follow the instructions. Be creative and think outside of the box when you can. And make it a family affair, because the more the merrier, and you can learn from each other and make valuable memories. So stand back! You too can be doing baking experiments. Madam Top President.